So today we go back to Ian Dunnett. Now, for those of you who've watched the channel before, we've covered his book extensively, Brexit, What the Hell Happens Now? Or What the Hell Happens Next, shall we say. So, this is Ian Dunnett covering essentially what's been going on by Theresa May, and I'll leave a link to the article down below. It's on politics.co.uk and it's called May's Nonsense on Brexit Conceals a Cynical Strategy. So, it begins. Quite apart from anything else, Theresa May's government is guilty of crimes against language. Her statement in the Commons today took her Florence speech and controlled it and contorted it so violently that no sane person could have possibly understood what she was trying to say. Back in Italy, she promised Britain would accept all EU rules during transition. Occasionally, she reiterated that today, saying that we expect that the implementation period will be based on current rules and regulations. That means that the European Court of Justice, the ECJ, jurisdiction will continue. Freedom of movement would continue, and the rules of the single market and customs union would continue. After all, that's the point. To minimise disruption to business and avoid the cliff edge. There is no time to negotiate a bespoke transition and no interest in doing so in Brussels. Her admission of this was one of the first moments of realism from her since she'd entered Downing Street. But if that's the policy, how come her ministers are saying that in 2019 freedom of movement will end and Britain will leave the single market and customs union? After all, these certainly come under current rules and regulations of the EU. If you are confused by this, it's because you have an overly traditional belief that words have meaning and that political speeches should be comprehensible to voters. Here and there, May sprinkled crucial little caveats into her speech. Freedom of movement, as we know it, will end in 2019, she said. The words just popped up at the end of the sentence, smiling innocently. What this probably means is that the UK government will try and register EU migrants coming after the date. In fact, this is entirely within EU rules. It is also entirely within EU rules that the UK is one of the few EU states which has not done it. Then came the nonsense on the single market and the customs union. We would be leaving full membership of these two systems, apparently. We would then be able to make practical changes to the system as we approach the end of the state of the transition period. This seems limiting to setting up a new arbitration system. One of the two things is happening here. Either May is misleading the public or she is misleading herself. In all likelihood, it is the former. Freedom of movement will continue as before, with the government using regulation to pretend something has changed when it has not. We will abide by all customs union and single market rules, with the government using its disingenuous formulation of full membership to pretend something has changed here when in fact it has not. There's one offer to the Europeans on consistency, and that's another offer to the Brits on change. And by abusing language into meaninglessness, she hopes to refer to both things at the same time using the same words. The only other interpretation is that May actually believes the stuff and she really thinks she can move on from one phase of negotiations, which the government shows no signs of achieving, then negotiating one of the most complicated and far-reaching trade agreements the world has ever seen, and then agree a bespoke transitional deal all before October 2018, when talks end and all go to the European and British parliaments for approval. Presumably, she does not believe this. Presumably, she knows that the trade deal will likely take many more years than that, and the only transitional period possible is one that keeps things exactly as they are right now. If not, we're really in trouble. It's far better to have a cynical Prime Minister than a stupid one, although one should not rule out the possibility that we've been landed with both. Regardless of what she's playing at, May continues to make the same mistake she has made many times before, and it is a revealing mistake because it suggests that she believes she is living in the 1950s, which indeed seems to be her preferred cultural destination. The mistake is, she believes as if the internet does not exist. Her strategy is to presume that European leaders cannot see the things that she says in Britain, but they can. They can see everything. So when May tries to mislead her British audience, that is heard by Europeans too. With this, they can hear the nonsense about ending full membership of the single market and the wibbly-wobbly garbage about freedom of movement. The offer May made in Florence therefore sounds like it is going to be rescinded. It is really not clear who May is fooling here. MPs, the British publics, European officials, or herself, but maybe it's everyone. All the time, in Florence she made a commendably simple and realistic offer to kickstart talks. That realism and simplicity is now lost. No wonder the government is starting to plan for a no deal. On its own actions are making it all but inevitable. So once again, we are pretty much in trouble. And as you can see there, May knows, and all the politicians know, that if we leave the EU, and if we leave it, there is no upside. This idea that somehow everything's going to be better once we leave is complete fantasy. We are better in the EU than the out. The argument does not change just because we leave. You know, and things have been getting worse. In fact, there was 2 other videos I've got coming up next which reiterate this point excruciatingly. So stay tuned for those, and let me know what you think about Ian Dunnett. Do you think he's right about Theresa May? Because I certainly do think he's got a point there, talking about Theresa May the way he does.